How many of you are excited to go to see your physician? How many of you dread it? No matter how you feel about it before you go, how do you feel afterwards? Do you ever feel frustrated that you're not really sure how you're doing? Or you have a new medication and you think, I don't really know what that's for. And then you think, oh, I totally forgot to ask about this dizziness I've been having and if I can do anything about it. If any of these frustrations or others have been yours, stay tuned for the next senior moment where we'll talk about how you can get the most out of your doctor's appointment. Good afternoon. Welcome to Senior Moments with Shari. Today we're talking about how can we get the most out of our appointments with our healthcare providers. And we're going to break it down into 3 different categories. However, with each of these, I want to say I think one of the most important things you can do is to bring someone with you. If you're not feeling well, it's not good to be there by yourself. You need a driver for one, but also you need someone else to listen in, right? But no matter how well you're feeling, there's only a benefit to having someone else there. Someone else who's listening in, someone else who can remind you of your questions, someone else who has questions of their own. The best person for this is whoever your decision maker is going to be. So if at any point you can't make decisions or you've lost your competency, maybe a stroke, something like that, the most important person to have with you at all of these appointments is the person who's going to step in when you need them. So right off the bat, I just make that recommendation. Take someone with you. Bring someone else into your healthcare world so that when needed, they're right up to speed. They have relationships with your providers. They know where you're at with your diseases. They know what your wishes are. Very, very important. And we will have a separate one of these for advanced directives and kind of talking through the legal side. But today I just make that recommendation. Now, there's 3 types of appointments you might have. One we call acute issues. This is where you've made the appointment and I've got this sore throat. I've got this abdominal pain. I have a headache. Whatever it might be, something that's troubling you and you've made an appointment to see your healthcare provider. The best way that you can prepare for this is to keep what we call a diary. And it's going to vary depending on what your issue is. So I'm going to give you an example here. If your issue was a headache, these are the things that you would want to write down. When did it start? How long have you been having this? How bad is it? Is it intermittent or constant? Does it come and go, or is it's always there and it's always bad, right? But really important. Is there anything that makes it better? Anything that makes it worse? What meds have you tried? But write that all down. Otherwise, when you walk in, you might forget some of that information. We all do. We walk in there and other questions are asked of us and we kind of forget why we're even there and what our intent is. So make note of all those things in writing. Every single symptom that you've had, things you've noticed about it, the characteristics of it. Does it feel like pressure here? So again, that's just one example if what you were having is a headache and it's something that you've scheduled the appointment for. So making a diary, and that could be for incontinence, constipation, abdominal pain, whatever symptom you're having, make a good diary so that you can report that. I feel like a lot of us, we want to figure out what the diagnosis is. So, we might go on Google and we might look it up and we decide we've got this rare disease that happens 1 in, a million. But instead, we don't really give the benefit of having the right information, writing down exactly what's happened so that the diagnosis can be correct when you go to the physician. Next type of appointment would be chronic, management of chronic disease. So this would be for you've got heart failure, you've got diabetes, you've got COPD, maybe a combination of 3 or 4 different things going on, and every 6 months, perhaps every 3 months, depending on how you've been doing, you'll have an appointment to kind of follow up on that condition. So with that, the important thing to do would be to make a list of how you feel you're doing, right? So writing down like, I've been checking my blood pressures. I notice they're better. I notice I'm not as tired. I notice that I'm not as short of breath. Oh, I notice that I am more short of breath. So making a note of how you feel it's going so that you can report those things when you get there, right? And if you have numbers, blood pressure checks, pulse checks, blood sugar checks, bring those along. It can only help to manage that. In those appointments, one other recommendation that I would make is to find out, where am I in this disease process? How am I doing? Um, is another condition making this worse? What could I do? I think that's one thing that doesn't get asked enough. So if you're diabetic, for example, talking about, am I making the right dietary decisions? Would losing some weight help? Would exercising more help? What might help? Um, and, of course, making note of any new changes, right? Maybe related to medications, but maybe just related to the disease. So writing those things down and asking the questions, but finding out too, like, what is this going to look like in 6 months? If I continue on the same path, what will next year be like? Is there anything I can do to change that course? And kind of writing those things out so that you make sure that you ask those questions. And then the third type of appointment is more just like, oh, it's a yearly appointment, time to go in. And really no other reason behind that. We call those wellness checks. So, we start those when we're a kid, and, you have your 5-year-old checkup, and you also have one as you're getting older, right? So you can go in for that wellness thing. And a lot of what is usually looked at in those meetings are screenings. What would be appropriate for you, right? So if you're a woman, is it time to get a mammogram? For anyone, is it time for a colonoscopy? But it's important that you ask the questions regarding that too. What would this test show? What would it change? Is it appropriate for someone my age? I'm 90 years old. If I have a colonoscopy and something is found, am I going to undergo chemotherapy? Am I willing to do that? Right. So asking those kind of questions as far as what would this screening find? And if it found it, what could be done about it? Right. So it's important to have that information. Screenings are valuable, but only if they're going to be of some use, right? So making sure you understand what the screening is for. So it's good to prepare ahead of time for those, but it's also good to write down those questions as you get them, as something is brought up in the office, and make sure that you're taking charge. Because really, who's in charge of your healthcare? Is it your physician? Is it your spouse? No, it's you. So make sure you're doing all that you can to prepare well to make sure that you have a very effective appointment with your physician. And stay tuned for the next senior moment when we're going to talk about medications and how to prepare well for those.